I see the mentoring model of Jesus as one that is people focused, one that takes time, one that is a process. And then I also see it as a relationship of expectation. So Jesus says, "Come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men."
Hmm.
Jesus saw people beyond the person. And so when you're mentoring someone, it has to not just, it can be them, but you got to speak into them what can be.
Right.
So it doesn't stop with them.
Welcome to Kingdom Over Everything. I am your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes. And I have with me Kenneth Mulkey. He is pastor and president of Equip and Empower. I got it right, Kenneth. Pastor and president of Equip and Empower. So, how's it going, Kenneth?
It is going great today, Shay. Thanks for letting me be on the show with you. And thank you.
Absolutely. We're gonna have some fun today. When I had asked on Facebook, just my community on Facebook and said, "Hey, who do you think that I should have a conversation with on this show?" Your name came up. And then not only did your name come up once, it came up again, and then it came up another time because our mutual friend decided to also connect with me behind the scenes a months later and say, "Hey, remember this one?" And I was like, "I need to talk to Kenneth."
Okay.
And so
Okay.
I'm glad that we are connected. It's been a delight. We've only had one conversation previous to this, but I think you are quite the ray of light. And so I'm looking forward to this
Thank
conversation.
you.
So, all right.
Me too.
So when I had asked this question about who I should have as a guest, uh, the word that came up was around mentoring. Like you have a kingdom lens as it relates to mentoring. And I said, I want to have this conversation, Kenneth, because when we think of you've got a pastoral background and you have a business and you have business as well, and then this word mentor and community outreach work. And so I do want to explore just kind of the lens that God's given you on mentoring and all these contexts and even coaching. But before we do that, I need some background. So, talk to me, Kenneth, about the key things about you that are important for us to know that kind of led to this context of mentoring and coaching for you.
First of all, I'm an athlete. And so, I grew up playing sports, basketball, football, a little bit of track. And, and I just love sports. I love competition, and at every level of athletics in my life, I've always had a coach. I've always had someone there to help me, someone to believe in me. So let me give you an example. So when I was in sixth grade, my basketball coach went to my home, came to my home, talked to my parents, and said, "Hey, I think your son is good enough to play college basketball." And so that was something that wasn't on my radar. It wasn't on their radar. I don't even think they knew how to respond to that. So they was like, "Oh, okay, well, thank you very much." And and so yeah, but I've just seen throughout my life how coaches have played a great role and mentors. And so not only naturally, but also spiritually. I remember even when I first got saved, I really didn't know what to do. I mean, I had a boatload of zeal, but I can't say that I was heavy on the wisdom part. And
How
so
old
I
were
just
you?
needed some. I was about 23, fresh out of
Okay, cool.
college. Yeah. So just like, in love with Jesus, but just wanting to do everything, but you can't do everything. And so I needed people who were around me who could help guide me. And I had those individuals. And so as I look back and I look at my journey to now, there's always been someone there who has helped me. And so there's that saying that no one pulls him or herself up by their own bootstraps. And that's so true. And so that's why mentoring is really, really important to me because I've experienced the benefit of it. And then I can see the need for it as well.
Yeah. How do you define mentoring?
Shay, there's probably like a lot of different definitions for
There is. That's why I
mentoring.
was curious.
Yeah. So, so for me, a mentor is someone who is further down the road than you are and can by experience, help give you sound wisdom and advice. However, I think there is a precursor even to the advice part. And I think that is this person cares for you
Mm.
and has an interest in you. And that's the part I like to highlight when it comes to mentoring, because otherwise it could be very cold and clinical and mechanical. And okay, I helped you do this and blah blah blah, and so now you just move on, and I did my job, and I really don't care about you as a person, as an individual. And I just think that's not the true DNA of a mentor. The true
Yeah.
DNA of a mentor is, I'm concerned about you. You know, how are you doing? How's your family? How is your thought life? What's happening in your life? And when you take that kind of interest, yeah, the other part of the teaching and the advising and being there is, quote unquote, a counselor, that's going to happen. But if you can't relate to someone where they are with a true, genuine interest, and not like, okay, I'm gonna relate to you because it makes me feel better.
Mm.
No, because I want to help you. And see, here's, if I'm talking too much, stop me.
No, 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 keep going.
Okay, so here's what I think. Everyone can be a mentor because as we traverse through life, we're learning lessons, whether by mistake or by success. And we're becoming more wealthy with each lesson we learn. Because of that, we need to take that wealth and pass it back,
That's
or
good.
to the side, or whomever. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my core thought on mentoring, really.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Now, you're now equipping people to be mentors, but I have to imagine that prior to equipping others to be mentors, you've had to be a mentor. There's a lot of things that you had to learn and a lot of things that the Lord was giving you kind of growth and revelation on so that you could equip. So talk to me about kind of that thread when you started mentoring and what various contexts that looked like.
A lot of it, comes from out of pastoral ministry, just being in church, and I was an executive director of a leadership college as well. So we kind of really had a huge focus on equipping people in fivefold ministry offices and for whatever calling they felt like the Lord had for them. And
Mhm.
so by virtue of my position, I kind of became a mentor that way, and had one-on-one relationships, and still do. I just wrote a letter for a good friend, alumni of our school. He's applying to be a pastor of a very large and historic church in LA. And just being in relationship and just kind of cheering for him, like, yeah, you can do it,
Yep.
that kind of a thing. But not only that, I gotta say, Shay, I love kids. And so I've worked, in the inner city with kids, and just like, if I had more time in my schedule, I would work. I think I would coach kids and work more with them, because I would see coaching them in sports as the vehicle to mentor them.
There was a phrase on your website that really caught my attention, Kenneth, and it was talking about it was the word flourish, but then it was also transforming communities. And you were talking about you weren't necessarily specifically talking about youth, but it was almost like it was community focused, also business organizations and all of those things, right? It was kind of holistic in its nature. And I'm curious to know from because you've coached and mentored in various contexts, what do you believe are some keys that it's like, this is what Jesus modeled? What are some of those kingdom keys that make mentoring and coaching a kingdom driven pursuit or a kingdom informed, kingdom minded pursuit versus what we might just see in, standard approaches out there? What are the differentiators?
Such a good question. It's power packed. I'm gonna do my best to answer it. And so I think the Jesus model is people focused,
Right.
and the Jesus model has no class assignments to it. So Jesus will speak to a tax collector
Mhm.
and bring him close to him, whereas others wouldn't. And so Jesus just has a whole different model. And I think his model is motivated by love and by care and by compassion and dignity for a person and purpose.
Yeah.
And so I believe that Jesus, his model, even when Jesus blessed the children, in the original language, it said that he was fervently blessing them and sanctifying them unto the purposes of God. And so it wasn't just like, oh, bless you, little baby. I love you. You're cute. It wasn't that,
Right.
and I feel like that whole heart of his carries out throughout every aspect of his ministry.
Yeah.
And so, here's a great example for you. Jesus in John chapter 1, he meets um, Simon, and he says, "You are Simon, but you shall be called Cephas.
Mhm.
You shall be." And so Jesus sees what he is at the moment, but also sees what he can be. And I think that really is the heart of the Jesus model, is that Jesus doesn't believe that where you are is where you're going to stay.
Yeah.
And he has a plan for you to move you forward. So Simon means a reed shaken in the wind. Peter is a, a rock, a piece of a rock, and larger, stable, solid, and he became that. But he wasn't that at first. And so I see the mentoring model of Jesus as one that is people focused, one that takes time, one that is a process, one that has conversations of Q&A and some instruction obviously in it. And then I also see it as a relationship of expectation. So Jesus says, come follow me and I will make you fishers of men.
Mhm.
So Jesus saw people beyond the person. And so when you're mentoring someone, it has to not just, it can be them, but you got to speak into them what can be.
Right.
So it doesn't stop with them. So the cycle is supposed to perpetuate. And so that's why the Jesus model of mentoring can transform a community if a community could say, we need to do something different and we need to really focus in on our younger people
Uh,
and just our community.
yeah.
So anyway, I'll stop.
No, 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 that's really good. So, you and I had chatted about this, and I was asking you questions like, "So is God?" Because I'm a marketplace person, and so I was asking you, "So is
Oh yeah,
God
yeah.
expanding you into some of this conversation to speak to, organizational leaders or businesses?" And you were like, "There's pieces of that, there's parts of that, but your heart is really there with the youth." But I want to ask you this because I'm wearing my marketplace hat right now. I'm thinking about a kingdom driven leader, whether it's of a nonprofit organization, whether it's of a business. And you were talking about how mentorship takes time, mentorship takes care for the person, mentorship takes not only seeing where they are, but seeing who they are and what's possible in them. So basically looking at them with the lens of Jesus. When you're in a work context, and let's say you're a leader and you have people working for you, you know where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
How do you advise? Just like, what are your thoughts on this? Because there are expectations, there's performance things, there's all of that. So, how do we find the harmony of walking out a mentorship model while also, stewarding from a kingdom perspective and also stewarding from out? There's also these things that need to get done and walking this thing out kind of organizationally with those who are working with you and for you.
Yeah. Shay just dropped the mic on me. Okay.
I just know that there's people who wanna know. I wanna know.
Yeah. No, no, no. Thank you. Thank you. So there's three key times in a organizational corporate structure and setting when mentoring really could take place, because I'm very aware of that. I've been in ministry a long time, but I also was out in the corporate world, work for the state and things of this nature. Number one, a person needs mentoring when they first come on board.
Mm,
When someone first comes in, they're new, they're green behind the ears. and they need somebody to walk with them for a certain period of time. The current model is, okay, we hire you, you're on a 6-month probation, and we'll see how you do. And if you don't do, you're gone.
Right. Right.
Okay. So I don't know if that's the best model, but I think walking with somebody,
Right?
walking with somebody. Yeah. Okay. So let me just say this. Let me back up and come back
Okay. I'm
forward.
I'm I'm
So
with you.
companies, organizations, businesses, they go to all these conferences and they listen to all these motivational speakers and they hear all these good catchphrases and we got to set people up to succeed and all this stuff. If we're really going to do that, then they need someone to mentor them in the process. When they first come in, now here's the second part. When they are going to promote or do a lateral transition, second time when they really need a mentor. And it could be the first mentor they had, but they definitely need a mentor. And I'm going to say at least for 6 to 9 months. What does that look like? We meet once a week for 30 minutes or once every other week for 30 minutes, and we're talking about how it's going. And and I think that really can be very helpful. And we can do that without fear,
Mhm.
ideally, and in trepidation.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, when someone is about to either retire or they're about to leave their position, there needs to be a mentoring process for replacement.
Mm.
So what happens is we have in our companies we have training programs to get people up to speed on what to do, what the policies are, what the procedures are, what our who our clients are, what our goals are, blah blah blah. We have all of that, and then but we don't walk with people through a growth process of development. So here's all I'm assessing and saying to that. In the business world, yeah, there has to be accountability. Work does have to get done, but feedback that is regular helps all that happen. When you say do this and then you show up 3 months later because your boss yelled at you and now you're going to go yell at them, I mean, how does that
Right.
how does that work? If there was something going on, could we have had a conversation? And here's what I think. Here's what I think, and you can shoot me down. But I think as the millennials start to take over the workplace, and as Gen Z comes up
Yep.
behind them, I think what's going to happen is more of what I'm submitting than what has been.
Yeah.
The old model of just do it, have it done when I get back, or else.
Yes.
I don't know if that's going to fly.
Yeah.
So I think that, we need to help people better understand this is how we can be successful. It's not anything
Yeah.
new. It's not new.
You said when you were walking through this, you were talking about meeting with somebody week to week, but then you said, and we can do that without fear. And when you said that, I was like, huh, there's more to that. What is it that you understand about people or experience that made you say we can do that without fear? I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's a great question. And when I said it, I felt like I could probably elaborate on that. But, the fear of losing your job,
Mm,
the fear of getting in trouble. And so, one of the things that's really helpful when you have a mentoring lens is you understand that there is a developmental process that has to take place with
right.
everybody, and everybody has to learn in order to grow, and there has to be a learning curve. And so what happens is sometimes you need people in a position and they're mature in that area and that expertise, and that's great. But when you bring in people and they're not, and you think your training program is going to check off every box and cross every
Yeah.
T, you have to go back and look at, psychology studies in terms of retention and figure out, okay, did they really get that or not? And so some people can test well. It doesn't mean they have it and they know how to apply that. So I think that having conversations with people along the way without the sense of, okay, we're going to be talking, but if you don't understand something, that's
Right.
okay. That's why I'm
Right.
here. We're here to get an understanding and to get it right so you can succeed. what mentoring does, Shay, is it creates a value. It creates a value to the person who's mentoring that says, we believe in you enough that you can help somebody else in our
Mm,
organization. It says to the person, we value you enough, we're going to put somebody with you to make sure you succeed.
that's good.
And so, yeah, it's also it's a value. It's a we believe in you, so we want to invest someone in you with some time. It's not an enormous amount of time, but it's
Right.
consistent time. So one and done doesn't help anybody. But having consistent conversations can build somebody. Because here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. The other thing, Shay, is this is that, we talk a lot about work life balance and all this other stuff and try to balance it. But sometimes the things that are happening in real life with people who work for your company affects their
Yes.
job. So, yeah, we hired you to do a job, yes, but that job is being impacted by what's going on in your personal life, yes. And okay, we want you to just go to a therapist and take care of that. Okay, when am I going to do that? I got to take off work to go and
Right.
do that. And I got to pay money out of my salary or out of my, uh, FASA card or whatever, medical card to go and get that done. So I'm still having to give so much to get help, just to be able to keep my job and so on and so forth. What if your mentor who meets with you regularly could say, hey, you know what? I've noticed you're not on point. What's happening? What's going on? Talk to me. And that person felt the trust and the comfortability to say, hey, you know what? My dad has cancer. Oh, wow. What's happening? What's going on? Just got the diagnosis. Um, the bills are inexplicable, and he's in pain, and we're just having a hard time. What would it mean to that person to have 5 minutes of genuine concern, interest, and care? How might that help them for the rest of that
Right.
workday, as opposed to, you know, oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. Okay, so we need that report by 3:30.
Right. 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 Yeah, that's that.
Am I saying something? Am I saying
No,
something
no,
wrong,
you
Shay? Am I
no,
saying something
no,
wrong?
no,
Okay, okay.
that
I just
resonates,
want
and
to know.
that's and even though some people might have thought, "Well, that's extreme," it's actually not. I think that that's probably the reality in a lot of cases where it's like, so, either not even creating the space to even hear that information, or even when you hear it, then not really knowing what to do with that, and then just like, it's still just like, you know, changing the subject and awkward discomfort or, to what needs to get done, right? But it's like creating that space of care. This goes back, I'm seeing the thread of what you said that you believe is that Jesus model differentiator around here is that the beginning of it, the starting point of it is actually caring for the person. That's what I'm hearing as a thread in this. All right, so now let's go to local church. Let's go to local church. You have decades of pastoring in the local church experience, so I'm sure you have plenty to say about this. I opinion alert. I believe that a lot of local churches do a really, really poor job of discipleship because it's like discipleship is this class. It's we go to this class for this amount of time or whatever. I find that so if we were talking about kind of organizationally how mentorship like there's these phases, but that it's also not a one time thing. I feel like in the local church this idea of discipleship is too often condensed to like this. It's like it's this when we go through these lessons for this many weeks and there it is discipleship. So that was all my opinion alert. Now I want to know what are your perspectives of what have you been experiencing and how does how do you look at mentorship versus or maybe similarly to discipleship and how do you see its role in a local church community context?
So when it comes to mentoring, I see mentoring as something that could be very holistic in terms of I can help mentor someone in their spiritual walk. I can help mentor them in their relationship with their friends or the relationship at work or their business or their relationship with their spouse. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
different areas in there Discipleship has more of a very clear focus, that is, highly and mostly
Mhm.
spiritual, and so it's not wrong, it's not bad, it's awesome. Jesus said it, and I think we have so many varying definitions of
Yeah.
discipleship. From church to church, it's hard to like lock in. Okay, this is what the definition of it is, and this is what we're going to do. One thing I do understand and know, Shay, is that every church has a certain kind of
Yes.
DNA to it. And every leader has a style, and every leadership team has a style and kind of a way they function and do ministry. So I think everything flows from
Mhm.
top down based on how the leader views it and sees it. But I think, I do believe that we can create, mentoring culture. I wrote a book on mentoring. All my thoughts are from the scriptures. So it's not like, oh, there's this mentoring Bible over here. No, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's the Bible, has all the information, and so we just extract from there. But when Jesus said, "Go make disciples," isn't it interesting? He didn't say
Mhm.
how. He said, "Go make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them all things that I have said to you, teaching them to observe all things that I have said to you." So, teaching baptism,
Right.
he said that. What some may seem as right, wrong, or indifferent. All I know is that I just kind of looked through the Gospels, several times, and tried to see, like, how did it begin, and how did he get them from, is that the Messiah, to, okay, we're going to go and preach for him? And so, I just notated a few different things. And so, as I mentioned before, Jesus took an interest in people. And that happened in John chapter 1. We see him taking an interest in just having normal conversation. Hey, I saw you sitting under a tree. You're an Israelite with whom there is no guile. He's blessing them before he really even knows them or they know him. So there's an interest there. And then he gives an invitation. Then he said, "Come, follow me, and I'll make you
Yeah.
fishers of men." And so his process was kind of like showing an interest in a just a personal care, and then this idea of invitation. Then he started breaking them down with some information. He sat them on a hill and did the Sermon on the Mount. He told them, like, hey, blessed are the poor, blessed are the poor in spirit, for there is the kingdom of God. You are the salt of the earth, you're the light of the world. He started just teaching them. But then he also let them see him do ministry. They
Yeah.
observed him. And so Jesus would teach, preach, and heal. And then finally in Matthew 10, he sent them out on a 2-week missionary journey to go only to the Jews, not the Gentiles. They weren't ready for that kind of action. And and they did that, and he was giving them bite-sized steps. And he let them see
Yes.
him do ministry, and then he let them participate in ministry. And that's when he sent them out. And then he told them to now multiply this. So he gave them kind of a little bit of a blueprint. And I feel like if a church could have that blueprint and people could kind of be informed on it and converse around it, I think we could do that as a part
Yes.
of culture, not as a part of a
Right, right.
program.
And I think it to your point, so if we're creating that culture, so if we within even a local church context had that as a culture, and then going back to your point of you believe everybody can be a mentor, then that means every individual who's learning, growing in that mentoring culture can then with someone else that's in their life they're equipped to then do that. It may not be someone that they go to local church with, but just someone in their in everyday life. And then that gets multiplied.
And Shay, what I love what you just said about that is that sometimes when we think of discipleship, we're only thinking in the context of the
Right.
church building. It's not, confined. It can be as organic as your ability to relate to people is organic, and to do so on a consistent basis. And so I just feel like yeah, we can have this here, but we can also just empower people, thus
Yeah,
equip and empower people to go and just do it wherever they are. Because that's what Jesus did. He said, go and do it. And he gave them, yeah, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the earth. So he's like, I want you to take this thing as far as you can go. And so,
that's goodness.
yeah,
All right, cool. I want to talk a little bit before I let you go. I want to talk a little bit more about what you are up to right now. So you mentioned a book. So shout that book out and tell me a little bit about that. Then I have some other questions.
my first book is called Run to Win, Finding Your Lane and Finishing. And that's a book really about your purpose. Like, there was a season, Shay, where everybody just kept asking me, how do I know what the will of God is for my life? How do I know what the will of God is? What does God want me to do? And it just kind of, I was so bombarded with this. It drove me to prayer. I went to pray, and the Lord started speaking to me from the Word. It turned into a message, then it turned into a book. And so that's just kind of the process of that. But then the next step is not, it's not only about just you running in your race and running in your lane, it's about you helping someone else that is in your lane. So that's where the mentoring comes in. 10 Keys to Effective Mentoring. So the second book is Helping Others Win, 10 Keys to Effective Mentoring. My third book in the trilogy of the Win series will be about the kind of person who helps the team or the organization win. So I don't know how familiar you are with basketball
Just
or
pretty much
not.
watching it.
Oh, okay, okay. Does the name Magic Johnson ring a bell?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Magic Johnson, great Laker basketball player, and for those of you who are watching, I live in the LA area, and so the Lakers are my team. And so if they're not your team, they should be your team. I know we've had a little drama, but just hang with us. Anyway, um, Magic Johnson was a point guard, and one of the things that he did so masterfully is that he would make everyone on his team better. And so, my third book is going to be about the kind of person that you can be that can make everyone else better on the team, and it'll help the organization win.
What I love about that is that I notice you're not talking to just, oh, the manager or the executive or the person who's in charge. It's almost like it's a 360-degree type of thing. It's just like whoever you are and that impact around you, it doesn't matter. Going back to your idea that everybody can mentor and make a difference. And so I see the yeah, it's holistic in nature. So I love that. That's good. That's good stuff. Okay, so then on the coaching side of things, tell me a little bit about that. What are you doing as it relates to coaching? Not on the athletic coaching side, but I believe that you're coaching from a business perspective or an organizational leadership perspective. Tell me a little bit more about what that looks like for you.
Coaching is a different modality than therapy and from counseling. And so when people hear coaching, they think counseling. And but coaching is about three things, if I may say. It's about discovery, it's about development, and it's about being able to move someone forward. And so I started my coaching practice, KM Coaching, to be able to coach pastors and leaders and just really people in the kingdom or anyone who just really wants to go forward. So if someone is feeling stuck, if someone's in transition, if someone doesn't have clarity, and if someone needs to go from good to great, then a coach
Right.
is a great person to have in your life. And I have seen it. I've tasted the medicine. I have two coaches myself. And
Yes.
and I coach and I love it. It shortens the learning curve. I mean, because look, if I can keep it real with you, sometimes people feel and believe that the only way I'm going to promote in my career or in life is if I go back to school. And I'm not against, education. I have education, love it, it's wonderful. But we're talking about an enormous amount of time, an enormous amount of resource. And unless it's really this burning thing that's been in you, like, I got to do this, I got to do this, then, I would just say consider hiring yourself a coach because that
Yeah.
coach might be able to get you to where you want to be and want to go in the same fashion as another degree might do that. So, because sometimes it's not what we don't know up here, It's what's blocking us in here. And once
Yeah.
that gets removed, then, as the Disney song says, a whole new world. It opens up. It opens up,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's amazing. Okay, so Shay, before COVID, 1,500 pastors a month were dropping out of ministry before COVID. Okay, so COVID came, and so many people had to close their churches and so on and
Right.
so forth. And so it's just, the devil would not want someone who has that calling and anointing to function in it.
Right.
And so if we can help pastors, and I work with pastors individually, I work with teams and help them try to move through things, because sometimes you need a set of eyes and ears who aren't in the room. Come
Yes.
into the room, and you're going to see what's really in the room a little bit differently, and help
Yeah.
them navigate that. And so that's what I can do as a coach. I mean, I hate to see a leader, or I hate to see a team stuck, because if they're stuck, then everybody else is stuck.
So we talked about kind of the model of Jesus and how that informs the approach to mentoring. Coaching being a different modality, would you have a different answer? Is there something that you would say different about the model of Jesus and how that can inform a coaching approach that might be different from perhaps maybe the world teaches a coaching discipline?
Not at all. Same.
Same answer.
Every good and perfect gift comes from above. I mean, it just, everything good that we do here in the world, in church and business, the principles, the truth, the proven format, it's all from scripture. It
Yeah.
really is. And so when you watch Jesus ask Philip in John chapter 6, where should we buy bread that these may eat? That's coaching. And so,
That is
so
funny.
he took him from here, like,
Yes.
these people are hangry. They're not hungry, they're hangry. And
Yes.
something's got to happen. What are we going to do? So he's teaching them now about the miracle working provision of God, but he started it off with a question. And then he broadened his world, and then let him step into that miracle and be a part of it, and then take some food home for later. Wow.
Yes, that's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Kenneth, you are such a delight to speak to. I, for one, am really looking forward to when you release your book 3 of the Win trilogy. So be sure to holla at your sis when you're done with that. I would
Yes.
love to read that and share that. But this is so good for those who want to learn more, connect with you, Kenneth. What do they do?
I would just say, go to kennethmulkey.com. There's several ways to just kind of hit me up there. If you're interested in coaching, love to have a convo with you. If you're interested in finding out more about mentoring and mentor training, and the reason why, I'm in this stream of mentor training, because I understand this, that there's a lot of people that need mentoring, and I'm only like one guy, and God's
Right.
plan is not just for me to try to mentor everybody. I'm supposed to mentor some people, but I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to mentor everybody. So God's called each of you to mentor somebody. There's somebody today that's on your mind that you can begin to move towards them with an interest and a care, and start to help them on a pathway. Also, if you feel like I need help in that, then please, if you will go to Amazon, you'll get my book, Helping Others Win 10 Keys to Effective
Yes.
Mentoring. I would
That's right.
encourage you to do that. And
Yes.
so, and there was a young man, he had just got promoted, and he was a younger guy, and he was going to have all these people who were seasoned over him, and he had never been over a team. He didn't know what he was doing in the world. So he called his friend, and he's in another state, and his friend called me, and he said, hey man, what do I do to help this dude? I said, send him my book. And so he sent him the book, and now the guy is flourishing in his
Yes.
role because he's mentoring his team. And
Yes.
so
And that
you
is
can
that book
do it.
2? Is that book 2 in the trilogy?
That's book two. That's
That's
book
book
two in
number
the
2.
trilogy. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right,
So
good.
Star Wars ain't the only people who got trilogies here.
I love that. You guys go ahead and check out that book. Check out his website. We'll have all the links in the show notes. Kenneth, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Shay, for having me. I appreciate it.